The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me here to talk about mental fitness. I think it's a pretty important topic, mental health, or I like to call it mental fitness. But before I get into that, I want to share a little background on myself for those who don't know me very well. I'm a project manager here by trade. I'm also an ambassador for healthy living. I do coaching and mentoring for fitness and nutrition with a focus on the mental aspect of health for people all across the country. You can see the tagline for my website is healthy living starts between your ears, because I'm convinced that mental fitness is the foundation for optimized health and performance. So while I'm not a certified counselor or nutritionist, I am a student of human behavior, nutrition, and fitness, and I share what I've learned over the past several years from my own healthy living journey in my private virtual accountability groups and through videos and articles on my website and social media. So what I'll share today is really quite personal to me. It's my testimony of what I've learned through study and practice and failing and sorting through a lot of the mumbo jumbo that permeates our popular culture related to mental health. And so I've landed on what I believe are some timeless principles of mental fitness that work for me. And my hope is that you can take away even just one thing that will encourage you and inspire your own healthy living journey and mental fitness. So if you can hang in with me to the end, I'll share some excellent resources that you can access if you'd like more information or one-on-one help. So let's dig in. I think to understand principles of mental fitness, we need to understand mental illness. So what is mental illness? It's also called mental health disorders, and it refers to a wide range of mental health conditions or disorders that affect your mood and thinking and behavior. And there's plenty of examples I've listed here, and also some signs and symptoms. So it can manifest in many different ways, and I just think it's fair for us to be aware of what those might look like. So if you can relate to any of these signs, you're not alone. You can read these stats for yourself, but it's kind of alarming to think about how many adults here in America are diagnosed with some kind of mental health disorder. So clearly, mental illness is common, and the stats are alarming, and they really only account for those that are diagnosed. So as far as I'm concerned, I think everyone has some form of mental illness, and it will likely not be medically diagnosed, but it's every bit as debilitating to personal performance and overall well-being. And so if you don't believe me, or you can't seem to relate to the signs that I shared on the previous slide, ask yourself these questions. Are you paralyzed by choices? Do you ever quit your best intentions or find yourself restarting your goals or resolutions? Do you get easily distracted or discouraged or stressed or angry? Do you complain a lot? Are you even happy with your life and where you are and what you're doing? And I think these are all important questions that we should be asking ourselves. And I know what you're thinking. Come on, Chad, that's kind of a stretch, don't you think? Just because I answer these questions doesn't mean I'm crazy. And surely I don't want you to get me wrong here. I'm not saying that you're crazy at all. I'm just saying that when we struggle with such things or experience some of these signs, it can usually be linked to a disorder between your ears. And such disorder absolutely impacts your personal well-being, productivity, and capacity to be your best and achieve your goals. So I think we can all relate here, and it reinforces the importance of mental fitness, which is what I really want us to focus on today. So I think we live in such a frantic busyness that we rarely take the time and energy to think about who we are, how we behave, and if we're heading in the direction that we really want to go. And so part of mental fitness is an exercise in self-awareness. So further, we can say that mental fitness is basically the opposite of mental illness, if that's not obvious enough for you, but mental fitness is really kind of a movement, I guess, that encourages people to be intentional about regulating and maintaining their emotional well-being. Mental fitness builds resilience against everyday mental health challenges. It helps us cope with the escalation of anxiety and depression and negative thought patterns. You know, when we're mentally fit, we're more in control of our thoughts and feelings and our behaviors. Even though emotionally healthy people still feel a broad spectrum of emotions, including stress and anger and sadness, they've developed skills and abilities to manage those emotions effectively. And that's part of what we want to cover today. So I think it goes without saying that neglecting mental health can make you more likely to make poor lifestyle choices, and conversely, building your mental fitness enhances your ability to cope with stress and can improve your physical health and your productivity at work, and your relationships, and your overall happiness. So it's really important. So that's enough of the background on the topic. We get it. Mental fitness matters. It's a serious issue that's often overlooked, and there's a lot of noise out there about what to do and how to be mentally fit. And much of it is pretty obvious when you hear it, but as they say, we often need to be reminded more than we need to be instructed. So what I have for you today is not a checklist of things to do or not do, or more rules that we won't follow, or a bunch of psychobabble that will make us feel like we need a shrink, or a one-way ticket to the loony bin. As I mentioned at the start, I want to share with you some principles about mental fitness that I've been studying and practicing for some time now, and they're really helping me to improve, transform really from the inside out. And since our body and mind and soul are all interconnected, I believe that if the inner man is what he ought to be, then the outer man will take care of himself. So we're going to cover these 7 principles of mental fitness one at a time. You might want to get out a pen and notepad if you're so inclined. We're going to go through this pretty fast. So, mental fitness principle number 1, what you feed grows. So the more we feed negative thoughts and behaviors, the more likely they will occur. Science has proven that humans have an enormous capacity to constantly rewire our brains over time. Thoughts that evoke certain emotions cluster together via our neural pathways. And this means that every time we allow a negative thought to repeat, it strengthens. And like any other muscle, our brain seeks to strengthen neural networks through repeated use. So of course, the opposite is also true. Every time we allow a positive thought to repeat, it grows and strengthens as well. So another way to look at this is to think about a garden or houseplants. Everyone knows that for plants to grow, you must give them water and sun. And if you don't, the plants will die. And if you give them fertilizer, compost, and pruning is necessary, the plants will be especially vibrant and healthy. The same can be said for our mind. Feeding your mind with negativity, bitterness, resentment, anger, doubt, fear, worry, etc., will result in a mindset and attitude that is not conducive to achieving your goals or being the very best version of yourself. So the saying is true, you reap what you sow. It means that you will get back whatever you put in. It's just like garbage in equals garbage out. So ask yourself, what are the messages that you're saying to yourself? If you're often grumpy and generally stressed or unsatisfied with your life, maybe the first place to look is at the inputs to your mind. Change the inputs from negative to positive and see what happens. Well, how? Practice gratitude and forgiveness. Let it go. Stop worrying over things you can't control. Do your best and forget the rest. Believe in yourself. Speak to yourself in a loving and positive voice. These kind of positive inputs will greatly influence your mood and attitude, and you will surely find good things happening all around you. The investment of such positive words and thoughts and actions, I believe, will return peace and contentment and success. So what you feed grows, and what you starve dies. So I'm gonna share a personal story here about this. I've been afraid of the water most of my life. I never really learned how to swim. I could survive if I really had to, but I was never. So over the years, my fear of the water kept me from lots of fun times. And in those times, I just hated that I was afraid. I was also too afraid to do anything about it. My fear was greater than my desire to overcome it until I was 35. Long story short, I just decided that I would no longer let my fear of the water keep me from doing something that I really wanted to do, which is triathlon, you know, the endurance race where you swim and bike and run. So I traded the messages of I'm afraid, I can't, I'm no good, into I can, I will, I must. And it was really hard, but I conquered my fear of the water and I learned how to swim, and I've competed in over a dozen triathlons, including 2 half Ironman distance races where I had to swim over a mile in the lake. It started with a decision to feed my mind with positive thoughts about my relationship with the water. What you feed grows, and what you starve dies. I hope that makes sense. So this topic is not complete until we address temptation, and I'll get into that more at the end when we talk about breaking bad habits, so stay tuned for that. But the cold hard truth is that we are all tempted by something, and temptation always starts in our mind. It doesn't matter if your temptation is for food, for being easily angered or frustrated, or if it's porn or gambling or smoking or alcohol or shopping or whatever. We're all prone to some negative behavior to numb a pain in our life or escape from some negative emotion like depression, fear, guilt, sadness, boredom, whatever. So understand that it's normal for these tempting thoughts to come to our mind, and we can't help the first thought most times, and we can't help what we see or hear that triggers those thoughts many times either. But what you feed grows, and what you starve dies. So what matters is what you do next. What we do immediately after the tempting thought is triggered. What will you choose when you feel stressed, so you run to the pantry, or you see something that triggers you to feed the lust of your eye, or the bottle calls to you when you're rejected? Whatever it is for you, you know what I'm talking about. The more you think of the thing, the stronger the temptation grows. But if you can recognize what is happening to you, you feel this emotion and you're drawn to your thing, whatever it is, you can make a conscious effort to choose to starve that thought, run away from the temptation, and replace those thoughts with something else more positive. Recognizing that you're faced with an opportunity to feed something positive in your life in the midst of a temptation is a really powerful step to conquering your mind and achieving mental fitness. All right, so there's principle 1. Next, values are not ethics or morals. Values are what is important to us, what we value, or what gives you purpose. Most of us have 5 to 7 core values that identify who they really are, and they're very personal and unique. Values reflect who we are on a daily basis, whether we're at home or at work or on vacation or all alone. When we align our actions with our values, we have more energy and we feel more fulfilled because we're doing what's important to us. And when our actions don't align with our values, we feel less authentic and probably more discouraged. So what is really important to you? Think about it. Write it down and ask yourself, what were you doing and how did you feel during these times that you felt the most energized, confident, fulfilled, and happy? Remember, you're not trying to pick values that you should have. There's not really a right or wrong answer here. You're just trying to discover your values. And answering these questions can help you come up with the words that you can associate with your value. But another way to think of it is that decisions reveal your values. So if you look back on some past decisions, you can help to discover what you really value from that. And here's why all of that is important. Making decisions is simplified when you are living out your core values. When you know what's important to you, you no longer have to wrestle with a choice in front of you. You already know what to do. You just simply decide in alignment with your core values. If you don't choose according to your core values, you'll just be miserable. So having your values sorted is vital to solving the decision paralysis. So an example from my own life is that, early in my marriage, Angie and I decided that one of our values is to honor our commitments. Many times we'd be in a situation where others would tell us that they would do something, the date was set and we were counting on them, and only to find out that at the last minute they had a change of plans, likely because something better came up. So if that's ever happened to you, then you know how disappointing that can be. And we just determined not to be like that. So whenever we made plans, even for things we weren't thrilled about, we would see them through. And sometimes that meant saying no to great opportunities, but we had peace about these decisions because they aligned with our values. So I think most of the stress in our life would be eliminated if we simply choose in alignment with our values. The problem is that we don't consciously think about our values or really even know what they are. So if you want to reduce stress in your life, to simplify decision making and improve your mental fitness, try this. I kind of covered it already really quick. Just think about what's important to you and write it down. Choose words or phrases that help you identify your values so you can easily remember them. And then review them often. Tattoo these words, these value statements into your mind. You might need to refer to a list for a while until it really sinks in, but maybe posting them in places that you can see them often will help, or talk about them with those that are close to you. I think having shared values with your family or being accountable to someone for your values also helps make it easier to choose well. Next, when you're faced with a decision, choosing in alignment with your values, and then you'll experience the freedom and confidence of knowing that you've chosen well. So it's pretty simple. One last thing though about this, if you want some more help to figure out your values or how to tie your values to your life purpose, or to answer questions like, what on earth am I here for? I really like Rick Warren's book called The Purpose-Driven Life. So give that a try. I hope thinking about your values inspires you to take even just a small adjustment to improve your mental fitness and make good decisions. Number 3 is priorities. This is simply something that is more important than other things, and it needs to be dealt with first. Priorities are not what we say they are. They are revealed by how we live. And so if we're honest, there's often a gap between what we say our priorities are and how we actually behave. Anybody resonate with that? If you're like me, you want to live on purpose, be intentional, and close the gap between what you believe and how you actually live, because you know that doing so will bring greater results, greater joy, and satisfaction in your life. And so one way to get that is to consider our priorities. So what's your top priority? Understand that it's likely different now than it will be next year or last year, and that's okay. There's seasons in life that require you to change your focus or your priority. For example, I know some of you have newborn babies in your house or very young children, and your priority changes due to the demand on your time and energy in that case. Especially in those first few weeks and months, there's very little capacity for anything else. So that is your top priority for a season of time. Or maybe you're like me and you've said no to a lot of fun things because your priority is to get out of debt as soon as possible. The point is that everyone has a top priority today. The key is to take the time to identify your top priority and evaluate whether or not it's what you want it to be. And so to find that out, just ask yourself these 3 simple questions. Where does your money go? A pretty revealing way to assess where your priority lies is to look at your expenses. Where you spend your money or your extra money after you've paid all the bills and such indicates where your priority lies. And so you can be your own judge as to whether or not the way you spend money aligns with your priority. For example, if your priority is to get in shape, you might consider if you're spending on ice cream and fast food or Amazon might better be used on healthier foods or the workout program you say that you can't afford. Oh, by the way, did you know that the company's wellness plan covers gym memberships and even virtual classes up to $240 per year? That's a pretty cool benefit that I'll talk a little bit more about at the end. Next, question 2. So how do you spend your time? If you think about how you spend your free time this past week or month, you can decide for yourself if where you spent that time aligns with your priority. For me, I recognize that I spend too much time watching TV, especially during football season. So this year, I just cut it out to spend more quality time with my family. And number 3, what do you think about? This might be the most revealing of all. If in your quiet thoughts, you reveal your true focus. If what you are constantly thinking about differs from what you want your top priority to be, then you know you've got some work to do to change that. So changing your top priority, assuming it's not what you want it to be, is pretty simple, but it's not easy. It basically comes down to your choice. You choose what your top priority is, whether you are conscious of it or not. That might sound a little bit narrow-minded, and I'm sure there's instances where circumstances are out of your control or seasons in life where your top priority is not what you want. But for the most part, you can choose where you spend your extra time and money and what you think about. So hopefully, your top priority is aligned with your values, and it's related to a big goal you've set for yourself, and it includes the important people in your life. All right, so everybody still with me? I realize this might seem like an unconventional way to discuss mental fitness, but hopefully you can see how awareness of these principles, answering these questions, and choosing well contributes to your mental fitness, which helps you to be your very best. So that's the gist of what we're after here today. So let's move on to the next one. Forgiveness. This can be kind of a difficult and scary thing to deal with, but it's a vital part of mental fitness. I want to talk about 2 sides of forgiveness, and that's forgiving others, and then forgiving yourself. So when you think about forgiving others, there's a saying that goes, not forgiving is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. If you think about it, it's perfectly true. Holding a grudge and being bitter or angry with somebody who hurt you only hurts you more. The other person likely doesn't even know you're mad at them. And even if they do know, why would you give that person the power to make you miserable while you're clinging on to your bitterness and hurt? As hard as it is, you can choose to forgive the person that has you bitter, angry, and hurt, and embrace the freedom of letting go of that pain. I'm not saying to forget it. Memories are memories, the past is the past, what's done is done, and none of that can be changed. But what I am saying is that you must let for your own sake, end the madness that bitterness and anger creates in your head by choosing to forgive. You're not letting the other person off the hook, and you're not forgetting what happened, but this is really about you. Now let's talk about the other side. Sometimes forgiving yourself is even harder than forgiving someone else. I think it is for me. I'm pretty good at beating myself up over my past mistakes. And honestly, some mistakes still try to haunt me today. And so I have to choose to forgive to keep me from getting down. It's a proven medical fact that harboring bitterness and anger by a lack of forgiveness can destroy your health. To reach your full potential, you really need to forgive. For me, realizing the health benefits and the freedom I feel with forgiveness makes it a lot easier to do it. And I also have to remind myself that my past mistakes serve a purpose, and they are part of what has shaped me to be who I am today. So hopefully I continue to learn from my mistakes and become better than I was yesterday. But one lesson I've learned, though, is, and what I strive to practice, is to choose to put that poison away. One more thing about forgiveness. If you feel like you've made too many mistakes to forgive yourself, I invite you to meet a personal friend of mine. He's waiting to carry your burdens and to help you find freedom from your past in his love, grace, and mercy. I don't have time to talk about all that now, but I would love to have a conversation with you offline if that sounds interesting. Listen, I get it. Forgiveness is hard, but it's probably the most important mental fitness exercise that you can do. Practice it today and see how it helps you free up the mental space to focus on your goals and priorities. Number 5 is commitment. I want you to think about a goal that you're working on right now. On a scale of 1 to 10, how committed are you to achieving that goal? If you answered 7 or less, it's time to reevaluate your goal, or at least your plan to achieve it. Because if your goal is big enough and important to you, realize that it isn't going to get done with a C- commitment level. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, you're either committed to something or you're not. A 70% commitment is like no commitment at all. So think about your goal and the real reasons why you want it. What's the driving force? What is your personal compelling reason why you must achieve this goal? Connect with this on an emotional level. And by that I mean act like a 2-year-old when you answer why, and ask it again and again until you get to the real reason. So your inner dialogue could go like this. Well, I want to lose 30 pounds. Why? Well, so I can look better for my class reunion. Why? Because I don't want people to see that I let myself go. Why? Because I'm embarrassed and ashamed about the way I look and feel. Why? Because my mom was overweight and diabetes and heart disease from it eventually killed her, and now I feel like I'm heading down the same path. And I've seen firsthand what unhealthy living can do to a person, and I want to live a long and healthy life to be around for my grandkids. Whoa, you see how you went from lose 30 pounds to being around for my grandkids? That's way more compelling. It's the kind of reason that can drive your commitment to do the hard work now to ensure that you achieve your goal. It's the kind of process that gets you, gets you from a 70% commitment to fully committed 100%. You need to be all in and fully committed, and the only thing stopping you is you. So find this commitment and be all in, and your achievement will follow. I like this definition of commitment: doing the thing that you said you would do long after the mood you set it in is past. So just think about that for a second. Think about that moment you recommit and you say to yourself, this is it. This is the time I'm going to buckle down. I'm going to get up early to exercise, or I'm going to eat more veggies, or I'm going to plan that regular date night for my spouse. And you get all motivated to take on the world. And then 3 days or 3 weeks or 3 months later, all is lost because you haven't held your commitment. Does this sound familiar? We're all guilty of this in some way, so I just want to challenge you to remember that the real commitment lasts longer than the mood you were in when you first made it. This kind of reminds me of, I guess 2 different things when I read this definition. The first is that I gotta be mindful of my mood and be sure that whatever I'm committing to is intimately tied to a personal, compelling reason why I'm doing it, so I can remember that reason when it gets difficult to hold up my end of the deal. The second thing is that, in my opinion, failing at such commitments is a personal character issue. Think of it as betraying yourself, which is just as bad, or really maybe even worse than letting others down. We want to be known as people who do what we say we will do. That's integrity, right? So that must include our personal commitments. Mental fitness is increasing our integrity by keeping the commitments we make to others and those we make to ourselves. So to protect ourselves from ourselves when it comes to keeping commitments, we need accountability. So make your commitment and then ask someone to help hold you to it. Now, this doesn't place the burden of success on your accountability partner, but it does help to make your commitment more real, and your likelihood of achievement goes way up. Think of accountability like this. Accountability is the glue that ties commitment to results. Accountability is the glue that ties commitment to results. Now, I don't have time to talk about it here, but I'm always hosting virtual healthy living accountability groups with people from across the country, including some from our ETS family. So if you'd like some more information about how to get connected for some encouraging accountability for your healthy living or mental fitness goals, you just reach out to me anytime. We can't finish a discussion on commitment without talking about consistency. I see too many times where people work really hard to get to their goal weight or achieve some other goal or break a bad habit, only to get too comfortable and eventually stop doing the work altogether. The results are bad, like quickly getting heavier than they were before they started. So hopefully this illustration will make sense to you and drive home the importance of consistency and to your commitment. Popular success mentor Darren Hardy shares a story about operating an old-fashioned well pump. So I've done this at my Uncle Jerry's farm out by Cabernet Ski Resort in northern Michigan. You have to physically move this long well pump lever and pump it up and down, pumping and pumping, and nothing happens for a long time, right? And then you start to hear some noises, but you have to keep pumping and there's still no water. There's no result. Nothing seems to be happening, and you're working and working and working that well pump lever. Eventually, a little trickle of water starts coming out. So you get excited and you keep pumping, and the trickle turns into a small flow of water. So you keep pumping and pumping, and before long, water is gushing out of the well. Hooray, you did it. You achieved your goal. It was really hard, but you did it, but then what happens as soon as you stop pumping? Well, the water stops. The water goes back to the bottom of the well, and you don't have any water anymore because you stopped pumping. So the point here is obvious, I hope. You've got to keep working. You have to keep pumping at the well if you want the result that you desire to continue for the long term. Whatever is the thing that you are pursuing, you've got to keep pumping at the well. Being consistent over time is how you keep that flow of water coming out. As soon as you stop, you can't expect that water to keep flowing. So the initial commitment is the springboard to get you going. Consistency is the maintenance routine for your commitment. Being consistent over time becomes a change in your lifestyle, and it's a little more automatic and a little bit easier, and you get better at pumping the well, and you figure out how hard and how frequently you have to pump the well to get the flow of water that you're looking for. That's just how it works. So to be your healthy best, you've got to combine consistency to your commitment. I hope that makes sense. All right, number 6, giving. I have a question that you should ask yourself every day. It has the potential to change your life, I think. And that question is simply this: who can I help? At the very least, such a question can make your day. Who can I help? I'm sure you've heard the saying, it is more blessed to give than to receive. And I'm also sure you can remember times in your life when you experienced the blessing of helping others by giving your time, attention, energy, or resources. For example, if you've ever served meals at a homeless shelter or raked a neighbor's yard or given to someone who can't return the gesture, I bet you've done something like this, and I also bet that you felt pretty good about it too. You get some joy in your heart and maybe even boosted esteem and confidence. Such things often result when you help someone. And I think it's no accident that we feel good when we help others. I believe that you and I were made to help others. And so developing a mindset of helping others is an excellent exercise for healthy living. And so one way to do this is to recall a line from the kids' movie Robots, where they kept saying, see a need, fill a need. And my wife and I would often say this at home to train our young son about helping others, but this applies to everybody. Though it feels counterintuitive, giving to others is great medicine for our depression, discouragement, or grumpiness. You see, it's our nature to focus inward when we're having a hard time. But as we covered in Principle 1, what you feed grows. Such a self-focus feeds the trial, usually making it worse. Instead, look outside yourself. Give, love, serve, and watch your trials get easier to endure. Your burdens feel lighter, and your grumpiness turn into happiness. I just am convinced that helping others is a key to happiness. That's why a wise man said 2,000 years ago, it is more blessed to give than to receive. When we give, love, and serve others, everyone wins. So open your eyes to the needs around you and make an effort to fill them and see how good it feels. All right, home stretch. You made it this far. Hang in there with me. Breaking bad habits. All right. Everyone is addicted to something. It's human nature. You're an addict and I'm an addict. Popular culture defines an addict as someone who's addicted to illegal drugs or alcohol, but an addict is simply somebody who is unable to stop some harmful or negative behavior. Whoa, so not only does that cover everything from gambling to porn, but also things like gossip, food, shopping, sex, TV, risky behavior, vanity, internet and social media, etc. And there's also addictions to comfort, control, safety, power, self-righteousness, even self-loathing. The list goes on and on. You can fill in the blank with any negative behavior. It's really anything that you must have, be, or do, so much that if something gets in the way of that, you become upset and frustrated. So maybe you identify with some of the items I mentioned, but you don't believe you're actually addicted to it, or you could stop at any time if you really wanted to. So what's the big deal? Geez, Chad, leave me alone already. The big deal is that if you can muster the self-awareness that your behavior includes some addictions that aren't healthy, then you're already on your way to overcoming those addictions and being the person you were made to be. The person you were made to be, free to love, give, and serve, free to have, be, and do what really satisfies, free from the slavery your addiction held you in, free to be your very best self, for yourself and for those you care about most. And maybe calling your thing an addiction will inspire action to change, because nobody wants to be called an addict, right? In my personal experience, I realized two insights about my things, or my addictions, that help me to see them for what they really are. One is about feeling like I have to justify or defend my behavior, even if it's only to myself, saying to myself things like, well, what's the big deal? Or it's not that bad, or others do much worse than me. If I need to justify that what I'm doing is fine or not that bad, then that should be a red flag for me to dig a little deeper into my motives. It's time to ask some questions. What is the draw to engage in any of these activities or behaviors? What need does it seem to fill? And is this thing what I really want to be about? Is it really that important to me, and why? Secondly, is the truth that people spend the most time, energy, and money on the things that matter the most to them, right? That's obvious, probably. And we already covered that in Principle 3 about priorities. But in addiction, we find hypocrisy. What we say is the most important to us is often not supported by how we spend our time and energy. And since I don't want to be a hypocrite, I need to take a hard look in the mirror and reevaluate myself often. And so I promise that taking a sober self-assessment, you can identify some negative behavior in your life that you really struggle with. And I'm here to tell you that you and I have an addiction that keeps us from being our very best, and we can beat it. But how do we do that? So I've outlined a simple process. Follow me here. Number one is to decide. You're saying to yourself, I cannot tolerate this anymore. Whatever is the thing that you finally come to the end of your rope and you realize it's not serving you anymore, but rather enslaving you. You will never slay your addiction without this deep conviction that enough is enough. Find your personal compelling reason why you can't tolerate it anymore and lean into it when temptation strikes. Go back and review the ideas about your driving force we talked about in Principle 5 on commitment. Number 2, describe and identify. This is about the trigger, the emotions or circumstances that precede the behavior or activity. This is the trigger. Normally, we think of the behavior as the habit itself, overeating, procrastination, whatever. But it's only our response to the trigger. So we've got to identify the trigger, not so much the behavior. You already know what the behavior is that you're trying to change. You see, we begin experiencing the reward at the point of the trigger even before we act. This is where we get tripped up because it's our human nature to look at and think about and pay attention to whatever we've done in the past that was immediately rewarded. So we have to learn how to practice delayed gratification, believing that the future reward is far greater than the instant and temporary reward. Does that make sense? The trigger is usually some form of stressor. For example, you realize that you go to the pantry for comfort when something is stressful, and you overeat on junk food to cope with your stress. So you need to describe and name your trigger, and then make an advanced decision. Have you ever tried really hard to not think about the thing that you don't want to, only to find that you are even more drawn to it? Yeah, me too. It's pretty normal, I think. Thinking about defeating the bad habit will often send you right into the thing you're trying to avoid. So the trick is to replace the thoughts with something else. This takes some practice, but it works. Go back to principle 1, what you feed grows, and choose the positive inputs. But here's where it gets real. Ultimately, you need to choose your next move when the trigger hits. It's not enough to say, no, I'm not gonna go to the pantry when I'm stressed. You've got to replace the action of eating junk with a positive action, such as going for a walk or munching on some baby carrots. Having decided your course of action before the trigger strikes makes it way easier to choose well in the heat of the battle. So here's where you would lean on your values from principle 2. Making an advanced decision is creating a new association for the trigger. And this is because you can't really make the trigger go away. So you have to relate the trigger to something positive instead. It gives your brain a new focus. Take it a step further and include a trusted friend to help hold you accountable. Yeah, I know that's uncomfortable to share what you're doing, but a couple of things happen when you're accountable. 1, it confirms that you're serious about replacing your bad habit. And 2, you've got a trusted friend who cares about you and will be there for you when the times get tough. Because it's really hard to replace bad habits all alone. Get someone to help you, be accountable, and maybe invite them to do it with you. An option that I personally find effective in breaking bad habits is to pray. I tell my creator that I'm triggered and that I need some help to choose well. And that simple meditation in that moment distracts the focus from myself and often inspires something better than giving in. All right, finally here is the new reward. You recognize the many benefits of your good choices. You've taken a natural trigger and now you're using it for something healthy and positive. Of course, the reward is personal to you and dependent on your thing, but regardless, you've made another key step towards your healthy habit, which boosts your esteem and confidence. So you know that you can do this, and with practice, you build some endurance to choose well in the face of your trigger until it becomes second nature, and then boom, bad habits broken. So it goes without saying, but breaking bad habits is hard, and we normally give up too easy. So listen, your bad habit didn't just appear overnight, so don't expect to kick it overnight either. Stick with it. Never give up. Be accountable. Lean into your driving force and your values because you're worth it. And the people you care about are worth it too, right? So I hope this exercise helps. We don't want to be addicts or hypocrites, so let's just do the hard work to slay our thing. So there you go. We made it. Almost out of time here. We went through very quickly 7 mental fitness principles that you can implement today. But I recommend just maybe taking one at a time though, so you don't get overwhelmed. And I just want to share with you a couple of resources as we close up. The first here is the company's employee assistance program. And the website here with the user and password, Olivia shares it on occasion, but I'm sharing it here again. This is really a good resource that covers a variety of wellness topics, including mental health. And so I just would encourage you to carve out an appointment in your calendar to look through this and see what might interest you. All right. Secondly, I mentioned earlier the company's reimbursement plan for gym memberships has been increased to $240 a year, and it now includes virtual classes, which is amazing. And I just want you to know that I'm an ambassador for a world-class resource of exercise, nutrition, and wellness online resources that have made a huge impact on my healthy living journey. So a portion of your reimbursable allowance could be used to get you access to the resources that I use every day to help me learn about healthy eating with recipes and meal plans and fitness videos that I can do at home, along with the supportive community to help me along the way. And so you can ask me how to get started on such a thing, or contact Olivia for approval of the virtual class that you'd like to try. Next, of course, I have my own website where I write about all kinds of healthy living topics from marriage and family and fitness, nutrition, and personal development. So you can check that out. Daily Mentoring with Darren Hardy, you can look up on Google search. I receive his email every day, which is tied to a short video that offers inspiring and helpful insights to help me be better every day. His advice is positive and encouraging and pretty helpful, I find, so encourage you to try that. And the same with this last one by John Maxwell. This guy's written over 100 books on leadership, and he sold a gajillion copies around the world in many languages. And his daily inspiration on Minute with Maxwell link there is also a worthwhile investment of your time. So there you go. That's the end of the show on mental fitness. I knew we would take the whole time, so we are up to almost the hour already. But if Olivia, if you want to open to questions or anything, I'm happy to address that, or we can wrap it up.
Is we're going to wrap up, but I encourage anyone that has any questions to either send those directly to me or directly to Chad. He would be more than happy to chat with you on any questions you have on this presentation. If you have questions on the gym membership or the EAP, please send me an email and we'll be happy to address those as well. We really appreciate everyone attending this webinar, and thank you so much, Chad. This was great information. As we are going to go ahead and end the webinar now.
Thanks all. Goodbye.